point or things like a performance review. So as we dive into this, I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through a couple initial things. As she said, we are going to be, it's very interactive. And so feel free to use the cue to raise your hand if you have something that you want to come off mute and talk through. Also, we're going to be using the chat a lot as we go through this as well. All right. And then I know that that's not possible for everybody, but I do. I love it when I get to see your smiling faces. And so if you can come off of being off video and show your video, awesome. If you are not able to, totally get it. But it does make it much more interactive for folks. All right, so let me share my screen here. Okay, so we are going to, can you guys see that? Okay, perfect. So we're going to be talking about your accomplishments today. And I will not be doing a lot of slides, but there are a couple key ones we want to talk through here. So first and foremost, a little bit about me. I have a recruiting and HR background with a strong tactical side. I am very much a generalist in the terms of like, I have switched from one thing to another. I kind of am that person that runs towards chaos and helps fix it regardless of what it is, which is how I got into recruiting and career guidance in the first place. And right now, in the last couple of years, I've started my own company and have been helping folks find their next job, both through one-on-one coaching and through an online community. But that's not why we're here today. I want to talk through how we help you talk about your accomplishments. So let's dive into that. All right, so first and foremost, I want to talk about when is the best time to either write your resume or to write your performance review summary. And I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I would love to have you guys throw your answers in the chat. When do you think the best time is to either write your resume or to write your performance review summary? Always, while you have the job. Yeah, keep a list as you're going. Your bride was yes, Sarah, yesterday, yes. That's so true, unfortunately. Yeah, so basically it's right now or whenever it's able to be top of mind for you. One of the things that I often will talk through with folks, if you're in a job, you definitely want to make sure you're keeping track of your accomplishments throughout the year. So when performance review time comes, you don't, you're not scrambling and be like, what did I do this year? What are the numbers associated with what I did this year? One of the best ways that I would recommend do this is pin this activity to something else that is recurring in your work schedule. So if you have a weekly or monthly one-on-one with your manager, pin it to that. And like every time you're about to go in, jot down a few accomplishments since the last time. If you have quarterly presentations that you do, take that quarterly review or quarterly presentation as a signal to jot down your accomplishments. Keep a brag book, basically, internal to yourself that you can use when performance review time comes. If you are working on your resume, again, you want to keep this fresh and you want to keep this fairly up to date because you never know, even if you're happy in your job, you never know when a recruiter is going to reach out and say, would you be interested in this? Send me your resume. And you don't want to have to scramble and come up with it all in one evening type of thing. And so what I would typically recommend if you are currently in a job, update your resume every time you do a performance review. So every time you have your annual performance review, you should also have an updated copy of your resume that you do in parallel at the same time. This keeps it always within a year up to date. Obviously, if you're job searching or thinking about job searching, you should be updating it fairly intensely at that point. Piper says, keeping track of things as time goes by is really hard for me. I don't seem to recognize what to write down as I go. So that's an interesting one. So things that I would think about, and we can talk through this a little bit too. If it is something that you are presenting to your boss as, look what I accomplished, it's probably something you should also write down at the same time. If it's something that, if it has a number associated with it, so if it's a metric that your boss and you talk about a lot, it's probably something to write down when you make movement on that number metric. If it's a project and the project hits a certain milestone or a completion point, that's a time to write that type of thing down. For those that are in jobs, or even if you've left, I had one client one time and she was really struggling with what to talk about. And we actually did an exercise where she had already left that role, but we went back and she had some friends that were still at the company and who knew her when she was in her last company. I had her go back and ask them, what do you think I accomplished while I was there? And they rattled off all sorts of things. So sometimes people that are a little bit new can see what you are doing a lot more clearly than what you can see. So find a friend or two that is able to like be that bounce off person for you as well. Perfect. All right. So I am, yes, Alicia, hype doc. That's the perfect word for it. I'm going to try my best as we go through to keep an eye on the comments as well as like going through stuff. So if I do miss a comment though, or I miss a raised hand, feel free to, I will come back to them at the end, but also feel free to throw it in again if I missed it somewhere there. All right. So you want to be doing this real time. So wherever you're at in your process, you want to be doing this real time. All right, so another thing for you to be throwing into the chat here is what makes a good resume bullet point or what makes a good performance review entry. So what attributes, what factors make something like that a good bullet point in your resume or a good entry into your performance review? So numbers, showing impact. That's good. What else? Demonstrating impact. Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about impact today for sure. Giving more context on why it was hard to do. Something that the job apply asks for and that I've done it before, yes. Not just what it's asking for, but also the above and beyond version of that. Why you did it, what the result is, the length, the skills learned. Perfect. All right, so if you have pen and paper next to you, if you don't, grab a pen and paper, or you can do this on like a Word document in your computer. I want you guys to do a very quick exercise. So regardless of where you're at in your career, I want you to think of 3 accomplishments that you would like to brag about. So if you are actively in a job and you're doing this from the lens of a performance review, think of things in the last year or the last 12 months. If you are writing these for a resume or you're in transition, you can broaden that time frame and think of things in the last 3 to 5 years. So I want you to write 3 down that you think are things that are big accomplishments, metrics that move, things that you would want to be able to talk about either in a performance review with your boss or on a resume with a prospective employer. So I'm going to give you guys a minute or 2 here to do this. You're going to do 3 things, write them down just for yourself. And when you have your 3 things, write the word done in the chat. Oh, and we have a timer. I love it. If you are already done with your 3, add a 4th one. If you've already done with your 3 and your 4, keep going. See how many you can get in the next 21 seconds. And time is up. All right. How was that? Was that easy? Was that hard? How are we feeling? I'm seeing some nods. I'm seeing some smiles. I'm seeing some so-sos. All right. Very difficult. So hard. Okay. Perfect. So let's talk through this. So I am going to share my screen again. So if that was difficult, or even if it wasn't, I want to share some tips. So if you're struggling to think of the accomplishments, here's some questions you can ask yourself. So you can ask yourself, what was I initially hired to fix in this role? And did I fix it? So a lot of times we get into a role, maybe we're a year or 2 into it, and we forget why they initially hired us in the first place. There was usually some crisis or some project or some big thing that we needed to fix when we came in. So did you fix that initial thing that you happened? And oftentimes we fix it so quickly in the first month or 2 or 3 that by the time we're a year in, we forget about that and it feels like it's old news. Make sure you're giving yourself credit for that. Another thing to think through if you're struggling to think of accomplishments is what obstacles did I overcome to get my work done? So was there a big regulatory issue you had to solve your way through? Was there a big customer that you had to win? Was there a big person that you needed to convince of something? And that can help point you towards the things that you did that were meaningful as well. And then last but definitely not least, what metrics did my manager care about and how did I influence those? So think about what are the things your manager looked at all the time, maybe 2 manager levels up. What do they care about? And then how did I influence those? So I'm going to give you guys a framework for how do we take we're going to pick one of those accomplishments. And I'm going to give you guys a framework for how to put it into a structure for a resume or for a performance review. So the structure, I have an engineering background, so I'm very formulaic in a lot of these things. And so the structure is 4 parts. You have a strong action verb, a compelling metric, a context, and an action. So I'm going to show you what this looks like, and then we're going to do an example together. And then I'm going to have you guys do one. So here's an example of strong verb, so exceeded. And then we'll flip back and forth. So strong action verb, we've got exceeded. Compelling metric, we've got you exceeded your quota by $2 million. We want to add some context in here. So we want to do the so what about this, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But your ranked #1 salesperson of the year, and then how did you do it? So we put the action in there. So by launching an affiliate program for existing clients. So here's what it can look like when you kind of break it out. So you have 4 parts: strong action verb, compelling metric, context, and action. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in the chat so you guys can see it. There we go. And I want you to think about one of your accomplishments that you had written down. And then I want you to think about putting it into this order. So take your one, put it into this type of format, and then throw it in the chat. And while we're doing that, I'm going to look at some of these comments. So Dana had said, took results from across your career, not just the last 3 to 5 years. So that's an interesting one to think through. When you are applying for a job, typically they want more recent results. And so if you have something that's 3 to 5 years old, that's very much in the right range. If you go back much further than that, they're going to be asking themselves, why don't you have results that are more recent than that? And so you always want to be careful when you're pulling further back for a resume. And then for a performance review, you definitely want things that are within the time period of that performance review, which is usually a year. Let me make sure I've hit all of the questions here as well. Michaela asked, is personal growth in that role considered a relevant bullet point? So as much as personal growth is amazing, typically the hiring managers don't care as much about it. I know it sounds horrible and harsh, but typically they don't care as much about it. And so what I would do is things that your manager cares about in terms of business results is really what I would focus on for your relevant bullet points. Personal growth and like how you learned lessons, how you achieve that growth, those are great things to tack into interview stories. On the resume, it's very much about business results though. Dirk had asked obstacles, how to explain that without potentially talking negatively about a previous employer. Yeah, please do not talk negatively about a previous employer on here. So the way to talk through obstacles is to talk through them almost like matter-of-factly. So like if there was an obstacle that said like, if the real obstacle was your manager and another manager could never get along and they were horrible to each other, you don't say that. But what you might say is, in order to get my project done, I was really proactive about managing stakeholder input and making sure that everybody was on the same page. And so you kind of talk about it in a reframe that way that is still true, but is not the whole sordid story. Natasha asked, how do you note the metrics if there was no tracking tool? So it's a really good one. There are a couple ways to talk about metrics when you don't have numbers. So let me actually share my screen one more time, and then we're going to get to keep throwing your examples into the chat here too. We're going to talk through those. But if you don't have numbers, let's talk through this one real quick. So if you don't have exact numbers, or if you don't have any numbers, you can use estimates or approximations. So if your company was really bad at tracking the actual numbers, you can use estimates or approximations. You can use words like over or more than, and then quote a lower number. So like if you're like, I know I saved money, but I don't remember exactly how much money I saved, you can say I saved over $200,000. You can use percentages as well. You don't want only percentages in your resume, but you definitely want like a percentage is better than a number at all. And then you can also use non-numeric quantifiers, like what happened because of this. So I was promoted based on this work. I was ranked the best in my division. I was given an award by CEO. Like, even if you don't have the numbers to go with this shows that it was a big deal. So if you don't have numbers, those are a great way to kind of start in on that. You can also sometimes find numbers from looking at what other people in your company and similar projects are doing as well. All right, so I'm going to come back to this and let's pick a couple of these. So actually what I want to do is, if you want to hit the Q button that says I have a comment, I have a question, I have an idea, pick any one of those. If you are wanting me to go through one of your examples that you threw in the chat here. So Piper Wilson, perfect. Okay. So Piper said, throw the figures here. Piper said, collaborated with clients and cross-functional teams to launch 6 new communities within 1 year. Awesome. This is amazing. Piper, if you want to come off mute, if that's okay. Are you trying to make this into a resume bullet point or into a performance review?
Since I'm unemployed, I'd say a resume point.
Okay, a resume bullet point. Perfect. So let's go through our checklist here. So does this have a strong action verb? So it has collaborated. Collaborated is
I don't
not
know how strong that is.
It's not as strong as some of the other ones, but it's not horrible. We'll come back to that one. We probably can make that a little bit stronger. Does it have a compelling metric? So what's your metric here, Piper?
6 new communities within a year.
Okay, perfect. Does it have context? So for context for this one, for me, I would want you to put in here something that tells me, is 6 good? So I might be looking at this and say, 6 new communities, that's amazing. I can barely launch 1. Or I might look at this and say, our company launched 100 new communities in a year. Why did you only do 6? And so I want you to put your context in here of like, why is 6 impressive? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So no, it's hard, I know. So why is 6 impressive? So 6 might be impressive because it is bigger than the target. So did you have a goal of launching 4 and you launched 6, for example?
Mm-hmm.
6 might be impressive because it's the first time this company's ever done 6, and so it was a first. 6 might be impressive because it was better than the competitors did. Like, I'm talking about this for yours, but like everybody else can be listening. Like, how do you quantify and put context around yours?
Right.
So how is 6 impressive?
It takes a couple of months to launch a community. It could take a couple of months. I mean, it depends on the client, really. Mm-hmm. You know, how effective they are at working with us and accomplishing their tasks.
How many communities did you launch the prior year?
I was only there for 1.5 years.
Okay. Were there other people doing similar roles that were also launching communities?
We were doing it all together.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
No, you're good. I'm doing prompts just because they might help someone else also. But like, if you launched 3 communities last year and you did 6 this year, like that's something you can talk about. If you and another person had the same role and they launched 5 and you launched 6, you can talk about like, I was launched more than that. When you launched 6 communities as a team, did people celebrate or did people like only 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
don't know. This is where I have trouble with the. I said earlier I have trouble keeping track of things because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Of course we celebrated, but it was part of the job. So it was just a thing that we did. So I was like, I don't know how to say, yay, I did this. That was your expectation.
Was there, so maybe this is something that we want to talk about. Maybe this is something that is not the big accomplishment for you that we want to highlight. And so if it really is just part of your job. So like, if I was like, one of my roles in the past was as an HR person. Part of my job was filling out forms. It was not the most exciting part of my job. It was not super special. And so like, if part of my job was I filled out all my forms on time, I'm probably not going to go brag about that on my resume. It was something like I bragged about the programs I launched. I bragged about the numbers and the results I achieved for employee retention, those types of things. And so if this is just normal part of your job, maybe it's not your resume bullet point. But if this is something that was a big accomplishment, then we want to brag about it and we want to put it in context. Is that helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the other thing I would do is I would put so the fourth part, you need an action in here. So like, was there something specific that you did that helped make sure you launched 6, not 2 that year? And like, was it because you started a new advertising campaign or whatever it is? Yeah.
I harassed the clients.
Okay. So we can put that in a more politically correct version of I proactively manage client expectations or client actions or something like that.
Okay.
Perfect. And I don't think you need the collaborated with clients and cross-functional teams either in here. Like that's kind of a little bit of fluff that might distract from all the other stuff that you're doing.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Let's do a couple more of these. So next up, I've got Shilpa Patel, I think is next in line. Do you want to come off mute? Let me find your... Did you throw one in here? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Shilpa. Here we go. Shilpa, are you okay if we go through yours? Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. I can hear you.
Sorry, having a little trouble with the button there.
That's okay. Are you okay if we go through yours?
Yes. Would love it, actually.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm sorry I can't come on video. I'm in
that's okay.
Such a place where it's not feasible.
That's okay. I'm going to read yours out loud. So it says, delivered over 25 complex unmanned aerial systems, outdoor and indoor projects worldwide, resulting in over 40% revenue increase and securing repeat business. Love it. This sounds amazing. So let's go through our checklist. Is it a strong action verb? So delivered. Yeah, that's pretty strong. Do you have a compelling metric? So you actually have 2 in here, and I would ask you, which metric is the one that you think is the most impressive? Is it the 25 or is it the 40%?
Probably the 40% revenue increase.
Okay, so we want to pull that earlier in the bullet point. So we would say delivered a 40% revenue increase by doing such and such. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
Because typically, like, recruiters and hiring managers are people, and people are lazy. So they start reading a bullet point and they might not finish it. I know that sounds horrible because it's only like 2 lines long, but they might not finish it. They're skimming this thing. So put your important stuff first. Okay, so delivered 40% revenue increase by doing such and such. So good. You've got a good metric. The 40% revenue increase, take this and we can expand on it. So is there a dollar number that would also make sense here, or a financial number, or is there some kind of like context that we can put this in terms of like, was 40% good? Was 40% better than the last year's revenue increase? Was 40% better than the target? Anything like that for a context here?
Yes, because it was a startup and it was a second year of business. Yeah, so I'd say it was definitely a 40% increase over the previous year, but I'm not sure what the previous year's numbers was.
So you can even just say 40% year over year revenue increase, and you can say something about it being like, if you think it was, you can say something about being at the highest ever revenue increase year over year or something like that, even though you're only in year 2. And then I would do your action. So your action is you did 25 systems. Is that the action? What is the action of how you got that 40% revenue increase?
By doing basically the unmanned aerial systems is doing drone light shows.
Okay.
Uh, and so each project is its own, and so doing 25 over the span of 4 years is what I put in there. So maybe it's not 25 that I put in, maybe it's what the number for the 40% is.
Maybe, yeah. Um, and I would think through, like, depending on where you're applying, like if you're applying for another company that does drone light shows, like you can be pretty specific in this. Um, I'll be honest, like I read complex unmanned aerial systems, outdoor and indoor projects. I did not equate that in my mind to drone light shows. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. And so, like,
No, and
sometimes
I didn't
simpler
want
language
to.
is better.
Yeah, I didn't want to do drone light shows because that's not what I'm aiming for, but I do want to work with drone systems. And the system was, like not just the project planning was working with the drones, hardware, software, planning, execution, and working with like production companies and everything. So it kind of
Okay,
incorporated everything into
that makes
that instead of saying drone light shows, because then it really silos me, and I didn't want to be siloed into drone light shows.
That makes sense. So I would make it more general then. Like maybe it doesn't even need to be like put the part in, like if drones is still important, put that part in of the unmanned aerial systems or
Okay.
drones. But if the other parts of it are not as important, pull them out because it's just causing people to look where they don't need to look.
Okay.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's do one more. Let me see who's next on my list. Dana, are you there? Let me see if I can find yours. Dana, are you there? Do you want to come off mute? Oh, I found yours. Okay. If Dana's not there, we can go to the next person.
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Dana. Is it okay if we do yours?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Dana.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. All right.
Yes,
so
please.
Dana,
Thank you.
yours says
Hi, Karen.
yours says scaled first ever funeral services comparison platform from MVP to 19,000 providers nationwide by leading 10-member cross-functional team, drove operational excellence and accountability, ensuring successful phase launches of platform, mobile app, and provider portal while aligning cross-functional initiatives to achieve strategic growth objectives. Perfect. Okay, so let's start with do you have a strong action verb? So yes, you have scaled. That's a good one. Your compelling metric. Is your compelling metric that you grew from MVP to 19,000 providers?
Okay.
Is that what we're focusing on here?
I was going to say yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Yep, I think that works. And then we need to put the context in here. So you do have some context with the first ever. I would also like the context to be around the 19,000. Like, was 19,000 awesome? Was 19,000 unexpected? Was it better than goals? All of those types of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I actually had to yes, I had to actually, before we even scale the platform, I had to come up with a way to actually go about collecting like pricing data to gather all like the pricing. Sorry, I needed to figure out how to process to actually wind up gathering the data from pricing data from funeral homes to begin with, and then I had to scale that data collection process to like 19,000 providers nationwide. I have another bullet point that talks about like basically the data gathering process and how I scaled that. So I didn't put that in this bullet.
Yeah, that's okay to separate them like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess.
So I would think through what your target was for how many providers though. And like, did you exceed that target? And like, I would put that in there in some way, shape, or form. Or the target might be less around the 19,000, but like about how quickly you did it, or something else. Like you want to put some kind of context in terms of this is awesome. And even if you know nothing about the business I was in, you still know it's awesome.
Okay.
And then how you did that. So the rest of this of by leading a 10-member cross-functional team, driving operational excellence, like I would take all of that stuff after the 19,000, and we need to get it much tighter. So you typically will want 2 or 3 things that you did, 1, 2, or 3 things that you did, and like make them very action-oriented things. And I would, like, the way that I think about this is I would write them in a way that it's as if you're explaining them to your English, like your math teacher or English teacher in high school. They don't know all the business jargon. They don't know everything else. They're smart, but they don't know all the fancy words. Take some of those fancy words out and make it easier for folks to understand.
Can you give me an example? I learned best by example. Can you give me an example of what you mean? Because I can totally, like, I'm very good with, like, give me an example. I could run with an example. I could build off of that.
So what did you actually do? Like, what if somebody's like, what was the one thing you did that made this successful? What would you say?
I manage all the projects, making sure holding people accountable across the organization. I mean, like ruthless accountability, prioritization of all the steps and things that we needed to take in the order we needed to take them.
Okay. Well, let me go a layer deeper.
Shooting.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Let me go a layer deeper. How did you hold them accountable? Did you like one-on-one meetings? Was there a reporting cadence? Was there a dashboard? Something like that? Okay, I think I might have lost you. If you want to be very specific on this, so you might say like scaled first ever funeral service comparison platform from MVP to 19,000 providers, exceeding target of 15,000 providers. I'm making up a number here. By, and then here you put your action, by driving daily accountability with key stakeholders and like, well, I'm trying to remember what else you said, and managing project timelines to ensure timely completion, something like that. Those are still not quite tight enough, but like you want to be as specific as you can on this for the things they're looking for. All right.
Perfect. I could build off of that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Perfect. I know that like these sessions go so fast. I know that we have very little time left. What I want to do is let me make sure I'm not missing anything else that we need to make sure we're talking through. I have let me share this actually. Let me share my screen. So one of the things that I have, I'll just kind of view it as a grid view here. I built out a lot of resource slides for you guys, knowing that we would not have time to get to them, but they have a lot of examples in here, and they have a lot of like, if you can't think of metrics, you can go and look at these metrics types of things. If you are wanting a copy of these slides, I think there's a pinned comment up top, but you can just LinkedIn message me. Hey, I was at your Generalist World meeting, would love a copy of the slides, and I will send you a copy of the slides so you can go through all of the examples and all of the context stuff here. With that, I also have, let me pull this up here. I also have a offer for you guys of a free first month as part of the executive job search community that I'm running if you are interested in that. And then I'm doing a free lunch and learn next Thursday on how to build out your executive LinkedIn profile if you're job searching. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching. So I wanted to throw all of those out there in case those are helpful for somebody. I know that, let me put this back in the chat here in case it's helpful. I want to spend the rest of my time though helping you guys. And so what I want to do is open it up for questions and just answer as many questions as I can before we get kicked out of here, if that works for everybody.
Already pinned a couple of questions.
Oh, perfect. Let me
so maybe we can start from that. And meanwhile, if anyone has any other questions, put them on the chat and we'll get back to them.
Perfect. All right. So I will go in the order that I see in here. So how do we clearly communicate the context side of the framework? By Gift, I think. So context side is really around the so what, why does it matter? So this could be actual result versus targeted result It could be actual result versus a benchmark or competitive industry target. It could be current result versus last year's result or a previous result. It could be a stack ranking. So like I was ranked number 1 out of the 10 people that were doing this. It could also be something more quantitative or qualitative in terms of like, I got promoted based on this work, or I got a raise based on the, like, you don't want to put the raise in there, but like I got a letter of commendation based on this work or whatever it is. So like you want to put something that like the outside world looking in is going to say, I know that this is good because of this context. Oftentimes we get so much in our own bubble that we're like, I don't know, like for example, I saved $200,000. If I'm at a small company, this is an amazing result. If I'm at a large company, this is a very pitiful result. And so like it definitely, the context matters, and you've got to frame it up for whoever's reading it, because they might not be reading it at the same eyes. Hopefully that answered your question. If not, feel free to throw another question in there. Let's see. Dirk says, my previous 2 jobs I was at for over 5 years each. So do I only reference things from my last job, even if the environments and therefore the challenges and achievements are much different? So typical rule of thumb is 3 to 5 years back if you're job searching for your resume, for your interview stories, that type of thing. If you go further back, like if you go like up to 8 years back, it's not the end of the world. Especially if you have like that takes you 2 jobs back, that's totally fine. When you start to go further back though, typically what I will start to do is tell people to lose the time reference in their, especially on the interview side, lose the time reference in it. So typically when we talk about something we did, we'll be like, 10 years ago when I was at this job, I did such and such. If you're 10 years ago, just drop that part of it and drop the like specifics and be like, in a previous job, I did such and such. And now they're not thinking about how long ago it was. They're just thinking about your example. So hopefully that's helpful. Melanie says, one of my big problems is that my last job was at such a dysfunctional company that a lot of what was needed was soft skills and persuasion to engage people who were entrenched in their habits and absolutely not open to change. That work is hard to quantify. Oh, Melanie, I'm so sorry. There are a lot of people, it looks like there's a lot of replies here too. There are a lot of people in a very similar situation. The best thing that I can say is kind of a couple things. One is it's very difficult to job search when you're still feeling like you're entrenched emotionally in that. And so do what you can to get some distance from it. That might mean taking a 2-week break before you go job search. It might mean working with a therapist or a counselor to help you through that. When you are trying to quantify this though, and you are ready to talk about it, you want to talk about things that like figure out what you can quantify. And hopefully like you can also pull stuff from further back too if you really need to. But think about what did get better and then how do you quantify it? It might be a lot of percentages for you though too. So if things got better but they weren't amazing, percentages are your friend. Hopefully that helps. Feel free to, if you want more specifics, Melanie, like feel free to LinkedIn message me and we can chat back and forth there too, because there's a lot of nuance in this. Okay, let me see what else we got here. Dirk says, how about anything that would be a hook to highlight for looking for remote jobs, especially when living in another country? I'm a U.S. citizen living in Portugal, looking for a U.S. employer for fully remote work. So when you are, there's kind of 2 pieces to this. When you're looking for remote work, that is one thing where you can say like open to remote or open to travel or something like that on the resume. And list your location more generally. So instead of saying like Podunk City in Texas, you can say I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex or something like that. When you're looking to work in a country that is not the place you are living or not the place that you have citizenship, sometimes it's helpful to put authorized to work in and like make sure they know that you're authorized to work in that country or authorized for remote work in this country or something like that, or would require a visa. Like make sure they know your situation so that they can make sure that they're looking at it appropriately as well. You might also look, if you're living in Portugal looking for remote work for a U.S. employer, look for U.S. employers that have locations in Portugal as well. Even if it's remote, like they'll be more open to hiring people in Portugal. Anisha asks, how would you recommend carrying through your generalist narrative through your resume without becoming overly verbose? Is it best to connect the dots of diverse experiences and then let the metrics stand for themselves? Perfect. So on your resume, there is typically a career highlights section or highlights at the top where you can kind of like pull the thread through. And this is a spot where you definitely want to be able to talk about like, I'm a problem solver and I've problem solved in this, and this industry or these types of roles or something like that. The thing about the generalist side of this is we have a lot of skills as generalists that other folks don't, but we also have they're different skills. And so we have to make sure we're pointing them out in the way that the recruiters are expecting and the hiring managers are expecting us to see it. So when you're building out your resume, you pull the job descriptions that you're thinking about, look for what they think are important, and then use those diverse skills that you have as a generalist to show how you really meet their requirements. So if their requirements are project management, for example, you go through and you're like, I've done project management not only in one industry, I've done it in 3 industries, and look how amazing that is because I can bring all of these industry knowledges into this project management. Happy to like work through that with you too if you want them. Let's see here. Megan says, if I left my last job a year ago, what is the best way to communicate on the resume that the first experience they see is a career break used to upskill and recharge? Okay, so when you are talking about a career break, there's a couple things you need to make sure you communicate. One is you want to communicate that you are, depends why the career break it is, why you have a career break. But if you have a career break for a specific reason, so like you took time off to care for children or care for elderly parents or time off to go back to school, you want to communicate that that is no longer a thing and you're ready to go back to work. So you need to make sure that's very clear on the resume. If you took time off because you wanted to recharge or it was hard to find a job and it just took you a while, that's okay too. Like you can talk about what you've done during that time period. You don't want them to see, hey, I've been watching a lot of Netflix in the last year. Even if that's the truth, you want to instead say, I took this course, I volunteered at this place, I did this consulting job, I did whatever it is, I upskilled this way, and like very proactively look like you are actively ready to get back into the workforce. If it's less than 6 months, you don't need to put it on as a career break for that type of thing. And when you start to get up to longer periods, you might want to consider how you phrase it. Typically, the 1 year mark is where I tell folks to proactively put it on their resume and address it. Anything less than that, sometimes it's better to just leave it off and have it be a conversation later. All right. Did I miss any? Let me look here. All right, perfect.
I feel like we've gone through all the ones in the chat, so I'll leave let me also open the stage as well. So I'll leave the stage for anyone who'd like to unmute, ask, or feel free to put your questions on the chat as well. Thank you, Karen. That was amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Feel free to reach out to Karen to ask your questions if you have more or learn about her community and upcoming events. I think you have one about LinkedIn.
I do, yeah. Next Thursday, it's all about LinkedIn profiles, especially if you're job searching. So the link is in there. It's a lunch and learn. It's a free event. Would welcome you guys or anyone else you know that's job searching to be there. And then the community is a lot of fun, and you can get the first month for free through the link there. But we do events similar to this. We have a lot of support with each other on job searching. And then we're actually about to start a February challenge, a February networking challenge, where we reach out to 5 people a day for the month of February and have very specific prompts for it. It's going to be a blast and a lot of accountability and a lot of support. So if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend checking it out.
I might steal that.
You and I can talk. Feel free.
Cool. We're doing a challenge for posting videos on profiles, so maybe there's kind of like a crossover on that as well.
Mm.
Cool. I'm gonna also just mention before going on to that question in the chat. So we have other events upcoming. I shared the link on the chat as well, but I will send them over to you, everyone, while sharing the recording of the session. I truly recommend as a complimentary session to using Notion for your job search, and also our signature one, turning your range revenue, especially for people who are switching industries or feeling like generalists, because Nikita and Lindsay talks a lot about still stacking and creating one-liners. So we can go on that question, but I'm also curious if that was the same person. Yeah. Let me highlight the question for Karen.
So I have a few extraordinary accomplishments from almost 30 years ago. Yep, 30 years. Revelation computer, Hackaway systems, work experience. I'm to create a second. Interesting. I wouldn't call it pioneering necessarily, but let me show you. I don't have it up, but let me pull up my resume template, because I think that might answer your question. Because there is a section that I think you can add pretty easily here. Let me share my screen. All right, so can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So on your resume, and if you guys, if you join the community, you'll have access to this free resume template as well. But and a whole bunch of videos to kind of walk you through how to use it. But one of the things I was talking about earlier, do your career highlights here. The other thing that might help this person that's asking this question is this, I would call it additional experience. And I would take the dates off, but you can talk about the things you did there, here. And this is the perfect place to do this. So like your stuff earlier has dates. And I usually recommend going back 3 main roles on the dates, or 10 to 12 years, and kind of like, depending on your situation, kind of play it around with those 2 guidelines. But typically it's 3 roles and 10 to 12 years on here. And then anything earlier than that that is notable, like you want to put it in here in this additional experience section. So hopefully that helps.
Quick question for you, Karen, regarding the career break. Do you suggest calling it career break if you're taking a year? Do you think the word sabbatical or the word professional development time?
Yeah.
What's your suggestion there?
I am pulling up some options for you here. So hold on one second. Career break, because I've got some. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can share this. So it really depends on what you did and how you want to position it. So hopefully that's showing. So here's some options you can pick. So you could just say career break, but then I would put a detail of like what I did during that. The one that a lot of people end up using is this one called personal sabbatical, and then they put something cool that they did during that time period. So it looks like a very intentional thing. If you did consulting work, I would put the title that you would have had as a consultant and then put the details there too. So like, I don't know if any of these resonate with you, but like these are all acceptable options here.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a combo.
Yeah. So depend, or like if you did a lot of volunteer work, put your title of the volunteer stuff that you were doing, and then just put that it was volunteer work.
Got it. And do you recommend trying to limit to what you have here, meaning 2-3 lines, or do you recommend bulleting everything you did? Like, for instance, I did a lot of ongoing education work to help me transition into a different industry. So I was listing each of those as an individual bullet.
The question, so I would, it depends on, the short version is it depends. The question that I would ask yourself is, how much is my prospective employer going to care about what I did? Am I just trying to answer the question of, no, I didn't sit on my couch and watch Netflix the entire time, but instead I'm trying to do this other thing? And how much do I need to put in to make sure they know I'm ready to dive back into this particular role that I'm applying for? If you went and got some amazing certification or did something else that is very relevant to the job you're applying, I would definitely put that in there. I don't think you need lots of bullet points though, because you don't want the bulk of your space. If it's like a year or 2, I don't know how long you said it was, but if it's a year or 2, like you don't want the bulk of your space going towards this. You want the bulk of your space going towards the prior work experience. And so keeping it short here so that you have space for the other things you did is going to be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you're playing around with it still, send me a LinkedIn message and like screenshot what you're working on, and we can talk through it there too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Happy to help.
Do you even have to put the career break in there in the resume? You don't, right?
No, you don't. Typically, I recommend if it's more than a year, you think strongly about putting it in there, just because it will help answer the questions of what have I been working on since then. But like typically less than a year, I'll tell people not to. If you have a question about your particular situation, I'm happy to talk through it though. Everything I'm saying are guidelines. They are not hard and fast rules as well. I know we're almost at time, so if you do have to drop, feel free to drop. And if you want the slides, message me on LinkedIn and I'll send you the slides also. But I'm also, hopefully you're okay with this. I'm okay sticking around for another 5 or 10 minutes if folks have other questions also. Thank you so much for everyone being here though. If you do need to drop, no hard feelings.
Thank you very much for your help, Karen. What is your last name?
Worthy. Karen Worthy.
Oh, Worthy, sorry. Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The link here, I can throw it back in the chat here. The link is in this pinned chat here, and the one I just threw in there. It's the first link on there.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. What I'm going to do is actually wrap the call. Also, but Dimitra has a question, so feel free to answer that, Dimitra, Karen, if you want.
Okay.
For Dimitra, and then let's wrap the call, and then we can send the recording to everyone and all the links, so you can reach out to Karen afterwards.
Perfect. That sounds good. Dimitra asked, how about adding volunteer experience as work experience? So if that is the best one that you have, then it's better than nothing. If you have work experience at the same time that is more relevant, like I would lean into the work experience more. Send me your details specifically on LinkedIn, Dimitra, and we can talk through it too, though.
It's very generous of you, Karen. Well, thank you for taking your time, everyone. And I'm sure we'll have more sessions with Karen. So hope to see you again, and hope to see you in all other events as well.
Thanks, everyone.